Oh, okay, there we go.
Good morning. We are joining Greg at New Media Consortium Summer Conference in Boston, and we will let you introduce the guests you have with you today.
Great, thank you so much. This is Greg Dillon. Lovely day in Boston after a sweltering day yesterday. It was pretty tough to get through, but we've come down 20 degrees, and I'm so lucky to have with me here Maya and Emery. You taught a conference yesterday, or
pre-conference
workshop yesterday,
yeah.
And you talked a little bit about your area of expertise, which is virtual reality, augmented reality, and you're going to continue to do some other sessions today.
Stuff on it.
Yes.
More coming up today on that topic.
Yeah, we kicked it off yesterday with a virtual reality masterclass.
Yeah, I heard it was
which
amazing.
Is, like a pre-conference workshop with 3 very intense, lots of play, fun, and innovation hours. And really, our idea was this is a special place, the NMC conference, where we get to a community of really inspiring educators with lots of creative, I think, taught, and it was very much reflected yesterday at our workshop. So we started with a speed dating sort of exercise with different VR and AR tools, giving everybody a sense of what's available, everything from 3D scanning to AR apps and opportunities.
Yeah, but Snap Spectacles there. We had other AR apps, a whole bunch of different things, and the new Samsung Gear VR headset with the controller.
Exciting.
So it was really good. Yeah, a lot of fun. So it was less kind of us talking and more everybody doing and having conversations. And then in the second half, we did some design exercises and everybody worked collaboratively at tables and kind of, addressed a challenge and using immersive technology. And we did some quick reports at the end. So it was a jam-packed session. I think we ended right on the dot, right? We didn't have a minute to spare, but it went really well. So great.
I think there's a challenge for virtually connecting to figure out how to do what you just did. Some of us virtual folks who can't get to these sessions.
It is a challenge. And, the technology is obviously going to get easier down the road. I mean, we do have social VR coming. There's already some initial platforms right now. I'm spending a lot of time in space VR, which I find pretty fascinating, though it's a lot kind of Second Life-ish at the moment, but it's going to change. And the kind of work that Facebook is doing in terms of social VR, I mean, obviously, Facebook didn't spend $3 billion to buy a technology that's a single user device.
Right.
Facebook is about connecting people together, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's their whole business model. So there's going to be huge changes in this over the next year or two. I don't know that we're going to be able to do what you're doing right now in that kind of way, or what we do, in terms of workshops, but we're obviously going to be able to connect in very different ways. We won't just be on screens. We'll be, interacting with each other's avatars, and they'll be very realistic avatars down the road.
Yeah.
So.
Helen, maybe we could be virtual reality connecting in a couple of years.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
I definitely think this is in your future.
I think it is. You're going to have a great avatar too. We know.
I think it's in all of our future. I think we had a full packed room, 30 plus educators, and I think it's a signal that people see the potential. People are very much aware of that this is not something which, that some of these solutions are possibly a year away, 2 years away from us. Nonetheless, I think that we saw very interesting conversations about the potential for this technology, about visualizations, about 3D modeling, about virtual spaces and connecting an embodied condition, which is basically the idea that we not only learn with our brain, but we learn with our body, and the environment actually we connect with the environment and provides a context for our learning. Right. So I think this is where there'll be a unique opportunities for virtual reality, where you can walk into these different worlds and be there in a much more emotional way, connecting to these environments. And I think that there was some, of course, recognition from some of the educators, the opportunity to do this for students in terms of trying different careers. right? Putting somebody on the job before they actually can get to the job, because it's so, we try our best to prepare them, but there's nothing like,
real world experience.
And this is why we value internships so much.
Yeah,
but internships often, they might be available near you, but they might not be available near you, or it's an expensive way to do things. Obviously it's one of the best way to get exposure, but we also have to think about, all the people that may not be like a direct opportunity for them. So I think lots of recognition, and also like people being able to be in these more critical situations of future careers, or problem solving, and so they will have the opportunity to do these kind of simulations, scenarios, to help them prepare them.
And even to be able to make mistakes. For example, a pre-service teacher right now goes into the classroom. They're even legally bound in terms of number of hours they can be there, what they can do. Nobody wants to go in there and make a mistake. You just want to absolutely do your best, because your academic career, your future career as an educator is all dependent on that. Whereas when you can go into a virtual environment, you could try things out. You could say, just like an airplane pilot can in a simulator, you can say, or you would be presented with a challenge of what if, and say, wow, okay, let me just see if this works. Oh, this doesn't. Okay, then I have to do it differently. It's a very different way of learning, and a very powerful way that's just really good.
So maybe I'll just jump in and give the virtual buddies or the virtual participants a chance to introduce themselves. Ken and Laura.
I was going to say Laura first. So Ken Bauer, computer science professor here at the Tecnológico de Monterrey, located in Guadalajara right now.
Oh,
hi, Ken.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Laura Pasquini. I'm actually a lecturer at University of North Texas, where we're actually talking about this with training and development. So my area is learning and development and the College of Information, and we work with healthcare providers that already use some of what you're talking about for simulation. Same with our military as well. So we've already seen some of this, but what it would look like for other areas. So I teach a course on personal professional development, is exploring that's it, employment career. And I asked my students, I just tweeted at them and said, what would you think about trying different ones on that are in job transition? So they're not first time in college, they're adults coming back that want a career transition. So I think that would be an interesting exposure and environment. So thanks for sharing some of that. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and Laura, I also teach adult students too, and it's the same kind of thing. I mean, they would love to be able to do internships, but they can't. I mean, they have jobs and they have families, and coming to classes as it is, going above and beyond, and they're carving time out of their lives, and then to say, okay, now you need to go do a live internship on a job. For the very few cases can we actually place one of those students, and they have the time sometimes on a weekend. Whereas if they could do it anytime, any place, virtually, I think it just opens up to tremendous opportunities.
Absolutely.
So is there something new or interesting that you added to the session yesterday that you didn't have access to or weren't able to include last year when you presented at NMC? Is there some new stuff that's happening that's really just catching your eye?
In terms of hardware, one thing, because the hardware is changing so much right now. Last year, we did not have access to a mobile VR headset that included a hand controller. And this year you have two. You have Google Daydream and you have the new Samsung Gear VR, and that just makes the experience much more interactive. So that was one thing, and we didn't have Snap Spectacles last year, right? A couple other things, and we didn't have some of the AR apps. I mean, I think AR is going to change more once we get devices, but that's still coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what we're able to do at this point now, as Emery suggested, is that we can provide the opportunity for a lot more hands-on experiences, and those experiences are getting better and richer, with the ability to navigate them and have some ways to interact with some of the things within the virtual world. So that's giving a better sense, into educators of the kinds of things they might be able to facilitate within the different disciplines or areas of interest. And the other thing is that we now see with the 360 cameras coming and becoming easier to use, that faculty and students, and this was a big area of why we created the workshop the way we did, can actually create some content, can actually become creators and co-creators in the space, which is something that while still was kind of felt like still some limitations and barriers. And so we yesterday, I think everybody was kind of, a lot of people really like that idea of that this actually is moving into our maker spaces, into possibly loaning this equipment to faculty and students, and taking them to their actually research side, or taking it to their field trips, and potentially using them as thinking about these opportunities, or these kind of field trips, and reflecting upon them. So I think that's the kind of the ability to just basically have people experience recording with 360 cameras, experiencing some of these apps, sort of like the more advanced with hand controllers, experiencing some of the augmented reality sort of. There's also mobile apps. There is kind of like a renewed interest, because for me it's renewed because I started as a Google Glass Explorer, and I know that one of the ways 5 years ago maybe we started thinking about augmented reality in this world of coming sort of in our near future, and immersive computing now. Is because I had the opportunity to experiment with Google Glass, and while it was, there's lots of questions around the project and around the technology and the limitations, one of the things that I immediately see a great use case was being able to do actually field trips. Majority of my use case was video, and so now and then kind of like use that as an additional work. In bringing that into the context of teaching and learning. So now the augmented reality apps, and everybody's kind of realizing the glasses are a few years away, if not more. They probably will come first, expensive.
Well, they
and
are.
so
The ones that are out are like, just
they are right.
The OG glasses.
But these devices, our smartphones, are available already. We still need a few things to work better. We need the depth sensors on these on smartphones, so they can do like a little bit better, more advanced AR, and an AR that potentially would not just use a marker, which is means that you point your phone at a particular marker and then digital objects overlay the space, but they will be able to kind of sense things in the world. And so this is probably about 15 to 18 months away from us. I mean, there's already Project Tango there's some phones on the market. They're still expensive and clunky, but the idea that people can start thinking about these projects, and potentially next year around this time, the devices can be in users' hands, and then I think it will be a very interesting
world. I mean,
world.
The Asus ZenFone AR is coming out, I think, in June, July, something like that, with Verizon, and that's going to be the first phone that is combined AR and VR device.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be pretty interesting. So, and I mean, down the road, I think it's going to be that'll be in every phone, but we got a ways to go.
So you see a balancing between AR and VR at this point?
Well, a lot of the predictions have been that the real market here is in AR down the road, that AR will really take over sometime around 2018, and by 2020 or 21, it will be predominantly AR, and VR will be a subset of that. It's hard to say. I mean, we just don't know, but I think that could happen, because there's going to be a lot of, well, first of all, with the VR, obviously it's difficult to use out in a public place. You don't want to be completely isolated, whereas AR, you can still be engaged with people. So I think that's going to really take off. But it's the the hardware. The OGV glasses are $2,700 right now. People are not going to go out and buy that. But when you start getting into that, especially if somebody can work it out so that it's your smartphone's powering a set of glasses, and that's already on the market a little bit. It's coming more later this year with other models. We'll get there. Yeah.
I was doing a bit of research and found headphones that now record 360 audio, which I thought was really interesting to add to the 360 video.
Yeah, no, audio is a big component to virtual reality. Ambient audio. Once once you experience kind of things without that audio and with, you see the difference of how important this is, how important it is for us. Yeah. So audio it's one of the technologies that actually we'll probably see even like future enhancement that we might have not thought of at this time, and how this to best fit sort of these virtual environments. So it's kind of like on the roadmap as a technology that we'll see some interesting developments as a result of immersive computing.
And at film festivals that we go to, and directors that are working in VR immersive technologies, we're all talking about directional audio as being absolutely essential to the experience. Because otherwise, you walk into this environment, you get lost. And I mean, you still as a director or filmmaker, you want to be able to tell a story. You can only tell a story if you can sort of help guide someone through. You might want to let them explore, but you also want to say, here's an interesting point in the environment. This is where you need to be, and you've got to somehow clue somebody into this space has more value than every other space around you. And you do that through lighting, you do it through sound, you do it through through the graphics. But there's a whole language evolving here, which goes beyond the kind of traditional cinematic language. So it's all just, changing rapidly. It's just an absolutely amazing time, I think, to be part of this. And, we're just very excited by what's happening. And, it's just for us, it's like every year we do this, or we already do it multiple times a year, different places. But every time we come back to the NMC, and it's like, wow, it's completely different than it was the year before. We're just like, all right, scratch everything we did last year. Let's just rethink this whole entire workshop and, what we might do in this.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the reflection, of course, we are very early on at the NMC conference, starting today. Now, lots of sessions are to be held in the next few days, including we have several other events here at the conference. But one of the reflection moments from yesterday, compared to sort of say a year ago, is that there's kind of like the awareness about this technology has definitely reached a baseline, and so as a result, it allows us to create a space where the conversation goes a lot deeper. So it's not just kind of like novel idea and spending a lot of time of people kind of transitioning to it and transitioning to thinking about this. So I think it gets, I think we can leap sort of people in our conversation forward a lot faster because because this awareness everybody has kind of gained since last year, and we were impressed with sort of the kind of also questions and conversations. And there are lots of institutions who don't have yet an official project, but they have a team exploring it. Something.
It wasn't something like 70% of the
a combination of 70% is of institutions
in our work.
In a sample, of course. This is a sample of people who are interested in, attending a 3-hour intensive festival.
Have something going on.
So they're obviously, already, they're very interested.
Right, but a year ago was probably 40%, right? 2 years ago it was probably 5% or something like that. It was hardly anybody. So you just see it on Zoom like taking off, and and that changes the whole kind of conversations that we can have in the workshops, because then we can focus less on the technology and more on the teaching.
Yeah, so we had that opportunity in lots of very high percentage of the participants choose to kind of think through the idea of how do you create a virtual reality journey or experience compared to just kind of like more high level, strategic level, which is sort of another opportunity for them to engage with. And so for us, this was telling people actually want to play with this.
We gave them a choice in that sort of exercises part. We said you could do the strategic side, or you could do the VR journey, create a VR journey, and everybody seemed to be really interested in, I want to do the journey.
I think something like 75% actually worked on the more creative project, which is also a reflection of the community.
Reflection of the NMC community.
But
it's a very creative group of people here. So,
I think the conversations are getting more thoughtful, and the use cases are emerging, just as Laura mentioned, and people are seeing the potential sort of to try at this point, and seeing, because it takes time. And one of the things we've said to people, try to like set a number of small subset of very sort of mini examples and test them and keep like reiterating and prototyping, because this is what this technology takes. It's not as straightforward as, you know, kind of planning to do a video and, you know, hiring a videographer and possibly kind of creating a script and kind of going through this. And, you know, ultimately you end up with project even in a 3-day sort of shoot, you can have a project. This kind of experimental technology requires a lot more timing, reflection, try and error, prototyping in professionals and people who've already done several experiences. So this is what we encourage, like set these kind of experiments in your incubation space and allow yourself some time to think about next year. Rather than kind of rush into something, which we see that we're talking to professionals with several projects under their portfolio, and they're basically, every time we start a new project, it's a learning. It's a learning.
It's
Yeah.
an experience, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of like some of the sharing and reflections that took place yesterday.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I know you are squeezing us between a lot of other things happening today. So really appreciate you taking the time to sit down. And I said, I feel like I've had this personal conversation with you guys sitting at the table with you. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be virtually connecting, and we'd love to contribute to the community. So definitely, you know, whenever we can, via Twitter or at our next event, we hope to connect again.
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll let you guys get going, and we'll just continue our conversation after you're off to your next event, your next activity.
Thanks, Maya. Thanks, Emery.
Nice to meet you.
It was really great.
Wow.
Okay, so
Okay.